January 13th, 2026, with the VIHE online, reading a study of Nectar of Devotion, chapters 39, the end of chapter 39 and all of chapter 40. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 144 to 178. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskachade Satarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpajubhishcha Kripasindhavya Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavavyo Namo Namaha. So we want to acknowledge the translations of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Bhanu Swami and David Haberman, and consultations I've done with Vijay Somasundaram, Hari Parshad, and Hriday Nandamarsh. So this is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the immortal, death-destroying nectar of the Bhakti Rasa, the taste of Bhakti. And this is our third class on servitude. This is in the Western Ocean, the second wave. We're looking at part 3. So this is Nectar Devotion, the end of chapter 39 and all of chapter 40. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 143 to 178. So review that there's two types of servitude, Sambrahma Priti, which we've discussed in the last two classes. And what we're going to be discussing today is Gaurava Priti. So in Sambrahma Priti, that's a recipient of mercy who acts as a servant. And we looked at the 4 main subtypes and then subtypes of the subtypes, which is discussed in Nectar Devotion, chapters 36 through 39, most of 39. And then what we're looking at today is Gaurava Priti, which is more intimate. It's a little less reverential. It's identifying oneself as an object of the Lord's parental affection or sibling affection, or in a more intimate manner, which is discussed at the end of Nectar Devotion, chapter 39, and all of Nectar of Devotion, chapter 40. And as Srila Rupa Goswami always starts out with each section, he talks about the relationship of the staibhav to rasa, the relationship of the strawberries to a strawberry lassi, mango to a mango lassi. So affection, the basic staibhav is affection for Krishna by those who identify themselves as objects of his indulgence. It's a sense that Krishna is indulging me, and this is called Gaurav Uttama. That's the staibhav. When this affection is nourished by the other 4 bhavas, starting with vibhav, it becomes a rasa. It becomes Gaurava Priti Rasa, which is a subcategory of Dasya Rasa. And this is more intimate than Sambrahma Priti, because the Gaurava Priti devotees see Krishna as his personal protector and maintainer, like their parent. So not like their master exactly, but like their parent or older brother. And the devotees in this mood feel utterly dependent on Krishna's mercy, like a son feels dependent on the mercy of the father. And often the Gaurava Priti devotee is one of Krishna's sons or daughters. Now, this means related to the parent. So this is from Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary on 32166. So Gaurava Priti has a predominance of the desire for interaction with the Lord acting as a parent. So this staibhav is, I want God to be my father. Now, in religions in general, we say God is a supreme father. Right? I think the vast majority of religions in the world see God as the supreme father, or perhaps as the supreme mother in some cases. And Krishna says, Aham bija pradapita. Actually, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he is the father, he is the mother, he is the grandfather. So we're going to have a breakout room where I want you to discuss a difference here. So you remember in neutral rasa, there was the general samanya neutral rasa of just love for God as the Father, love for God as the Creator. Right? This Shantaras of Samanya, which is there, Shanta Staibhav, sorry, of Samanya, which is there very, very commonly in the world. And then this servitude rasa, so this general neutral rasa on the one hand, God is the Father, God is the Creator, and this servitude rasa that actually God's my father or my older brother. He's my family member, and I'm supposed to serve him. So I'd like you to discuss the difference. So we're going to go into a 10-minute breakout. So we're now going to take a look at the 6 symptoms of surrender that's described in the Shastra. What does it mean to surrender? And the first is accepting whatever's favorable for devotional service. The second is rejecting whatever is unfavorable. The third is to believe that Krishna will always protect one. The fourth is to believe that Krishna will always maintain one. Uh, and to identify oneself with Krishna's devotees, to always feel inability without the help of Krishna, even though one may have full capacity to do things on one's own. Then humility and giving surrender of body, mind, and soul. So these two, seeing that Krishna is my protector, seeing that Krishna is my maintainer, are very dominant in this particular type of servitude. So this is called reverential devotion. Prabhupada titles the chapter Reverential Devotion of Subordinate Sons and Other Subordinates. So this is convinced that Krishna is always protecting me. It's called reverential devotion. Reverential devotion is executed in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and with his other protected devotees. So I'd like to open this up kind of to a general discussion. So as practicing devotees, as sadhakas, our surrender is supposed to include this concept that Krishna's always protecting me. Krishna is my protector. Krishna is my maintainer. And this is the predominant mood of this type of servitude, where one is in a relationship with Krishna as Krishna's child or Krishna's younger sibling. So what's the difference between this? What's the difference between us as sadhakas? Krishna is always going to protect me. Krishna is always going to maintain me. And this feeling of those in prema, this feeling as a rasa. And I'd also like to ask if there's any difference for the other rasas that you can think of in terms of Krishna's protecting me, Krishna's maintaining me, if you can think of that in terms of the other rasas as well. So either in comparison to us as sadhakas or in comparison to the other rasas. So any thoughts on this? You can either raise your hand or write something in the chat. Yes, Ram Yagya.
I feel like in when we see Krishna as the parents, there's more attachment because you have this attachment for your parents. But if we just see God as the provider or the protector in general, there's not so much sense of very strong attachment to that because a parent is something no.
Okay, so in the chat we have Utkarsh Pradek saying, I belong to him, he cares for me, is a feeling of Pradyumna and Aniruddha. I belong to him, he cares to me. Would that be existing, though, in a sadhaka? And is there a difference in that for a sadhaka, or a difference in the other rasas? Yes, Sri Katamrita.
And that was pronounced to everybody. I think so, because if you look at Bhagavad Gita 9:27, right, which is Mishra Bhakti, I would say, like whatever you do, offer it to me. This is helping us to develop some attachment to Krishna. And then if you look at Lord Chaitanya going on his pilgrimage, he was praying to Krishna, please protect me, please maintain me. But he was
Yes,
not a
yes.
sadhaka, was he, right? So then we can see that there is a huge difference between me hoping that you would protect me because that's, let's say, my business, versus knowing you would protect me because I love you so much that I know no darkness can ever come from you. So only all fortune and all compassion and everything good only comes from you. So sorry, just
No, nothing. This is nice, very nice. No,
just
nothing to be
couple
sorry about.
thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, very nice. We have Pulastamuni in the chat says when it comes to sadhakas, it's based on the fact that life is difficult and we do require protection, but it's also based on faith and the example of other devotees who were protected by Krishna. Okay, yes. All right. So it's not based on an experience of I'm hanging out in Krishna's house and he's taking care of me. Okay, Ekanta wrote, Mataji Nikunja Manjari in a discussion room said that generally devotee may feel as a child away from his father. He is providing, but there is no close relationship. And Gaurapriti devotee may feel as a child living together with his father and knowing him very well. Ooh, all right. That reminds me, my mother used to have a song she would sing sometimes. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child a long way from my home. I don't know if any of you ever heard that song. So yes, in this world we feel like that. I'm orphaned. I'm away from my home. When is Krishna going to protect me? Whereas these devotees are, they're sitting in Krishna's home and Krishna's protecting him. Okay, Pulastamuni, Prabhupada talks about this moon, the case of one who takes sannyas. Yes, that this complete fearlessness that wherever I go, Krishna will take care of me. And Prabhupada says, if you don't have this fearlessness, don't take sannyas. If you're going to think, who's going to pay my bills? Okay, Prema Prakash Haridas says protection and maintenance can range from lowest to full and final stage of total surrender. Yes, but maybe you could explain something of the details. Oh, I like this. This is BV
Yeah.
Sri Rajalila. As sadhaka, we see protection as protection from Maya. Ah, I like this. Of course, Prabhupada would also pray that Krishna could protect them from Maya. Yes, Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Mataji. I say the range because the protection that you expect as a sadhaka, when your understanding is limited to Lord is the Father of the entire world and all of us, then probably the protection, other expectations are at the lower level. But when you are completely and totally surrendered, that's when you expect each and every small thing also from the Lord and completely depend upon the Lord without any mistrust. You definitely understand that you will, by any means, whatever you need, wherever you need, and whenever you need, you would always get it. And if it is not coming along, that means you don't need it.
Oh, very nice. What a nice realization. I like that. If it's not coming, you don't need it. Yes. Yes, as my friend Shimati Vrindavan will say, I need what I have. Sundari Gopi.
Mataji, something that was coming to my mind to different. How do I see the difference? Like I respect all the gurus in ISKCON. They're all. I mean, I can go for help if I need. But with my guru, I have that special relationship. I don't know why there is that. So, but a sadhaka who is in that mood, it's a very intimate and a very close relation, a deeper where with they don't have to they know that father knows. It's like a strong faith. But a sadhaka is like, yes, Krishna will protect me, but that the flavor is different. uh, so I mean it's the same, but at the same time it's different because it's much more I don't know. I mean, I cannot explain it, but the same way that, I see all gurus, I respect all of them. They are all amazing. But my father, my guru is like, I mean, it's not like, but there's a relationship much deeper and I don't know how to put it up.
Mm, mm. Okay. And Shantivik Mahaprabhu wrote something here in the chat. If memory serves correctly, when Jiva Goswami discusses symptoms of surrender and bhakti sandarbha, he mentions that the quality of seeing the Lord as one maintainer is the whole, and the other qualities are parts. That one's surrender will naturally go to where one perceives his maintenance is coming from. I read the Bhakti Sandarbha quite some time ago, so I don't remember that. I would want to point out that let's look at the other rasas. Let's say parental ras. In parental ras, are you going to see the Lord as your maintainer? No, you're thinking you're maintaining the Lord. So in parental ras, this Lord is my maintainer, Lord is my protector is generally absent. I mean, everybody did go to Krishna when there was the flood from Indra, even the parents. But generally speaking, they're thinking that they're maintaining Krishna and they're protecting Krishna. So if maintenance is the whole of surrender, that might be problematic for some of the rasas. Okay, in this dasya, one may see himself and relate to Krishna as a son would relate to a father or a person younger than him. I think in this relationship we closer. Oh, it's definitely closer to Sambrahma. Yes, because rasa is an exchange of relationship as opposed to do something for the Lord. Okay, and Shravani asked an important question. A small child doesn't serve the parent, but depends on parent to serve them. Do Gaura Priti, who are children of Krishna, serve him? Well, I was wondering if someone was going to ask this question. So Gaura Priti is a subcategory of Dasya. It's a subcategory of Dasya. So with this mood that, yes, I should be serving the parent. And we see even, I mean, obviously an infant isn't doing any service. But like I regularly go to my granddaughter and grandson-in-law's house for prasadam, and they have two little children, ages 5 and 7. Actually, the 5-year-old is about to have a birthday in a few days. He'll be 6 almost. But he loves to do service for his parents. He enjoys doing service for his parents. And the 7-year-old just the other day volunteered to wash all the dishes. When I went over there last night, he was telling me how he washed the dishes, and he said they were greasy like butter, and I got them all completely clean. And then I said, how did you put them in the drain board? He said, I put them in the drain board so they could all drain. And he was going on and on about how proud he was that he had done some service for his parents, that he had done some service for the family. And at least my experience with very young children, which is kind of extensive, I have taken care of hundreds of young children. I see that this mood of service is very prominent, probably starting at about age 2, where the child really wants to be helpful. Of course, I once saw a funny graphic saying that the desire to be helpful and the ability to be helpful as a child goes inversely. So you want to be very helpful when you're little, but you're useless. And once you get to be old, a teenager, you're competent, but you don't want to be helpful anymore. Of course, I do see that if children are raised properly, they do continue to want to be helpful, even as teenagers. Okay. So yes, and nice by Rati Manjari, in Madhurya Ras, devotees see themselves as Krishna's. Now it's also interesting in Madhurya Ras, so those who are in Swakya Ras are definitely going to see the Lord as their protector, maintainer, because he's their husband. So you're going to have some element of this. Those who are in Parakiya Bhav are not going to see like that. In fact, the gopis even say that. They say, you never did anything for us. You don't take care of us, especially those in Parakiya Bhav, because it's completely secret. You know, like in our modern society, you can openly have a boyfriend who's not your husband. But in Krishna's pastimes, the gopis, Krishna's not openly their boyfriend at all. It's completely secret. And so they can't even talk about him. You can't even practically give them anything. Like he'll give them flower ornaments that then fall apart. You know, but if he gives them something tangible, like there's the one instance we already talked about where Krishna gave Radharani a necklace, and then it became a source of embarrassment for her. So if Krishna actually provides for you, that's going to be a problem. And yes, in the parental rasa, of course, it's the opposite. Okay, we have some more. There's mamata feeling in Gaurapriti. Thank you, Vrideshwari Pran. Yes, in all of the four rasas of Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, there's mamata. Krishna is mine. Krishna is my father. Whereas there might not be so much mamata for a sadhaka. Of course, a sadhaka might think, my God. Okay. Sometimes joke with my children that one of the benefits of having children is getting them to do things for you, getting things from another room so I don't have to get off. Yeah, no, it is like that. My daughter likes to joke that I've always been asking her to get me a cup of water. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. This was very nice meditation. It's very important as we go through studying these shastras that we're able to relate them to ourselves, to our preaching, and so forth. Okay, now we're going to look at the Vibhava for the Gaurava section of Dasya. So again, Vibhava is what stimulates our love, and it's in these categories of Alambana, what Prabhupada calls basic, and Udipana, what Prabhupada calls impelling, Vishaya, the object, which is Krishna, Ashraya, the devotee, and Udipana, general. So before the break, we'll look at just Vishaya and Ashraya. And we are going to have a breakout to discuss Vishaya and Ashraya. So again, the Alambana, Vishaya, Krishna, the object of affection, Ashraya, the devotee, and Udipana, impelling. We had one question outside the class, that is Krishna always the Vishaya in all rasas? And the answer is yes, with two exceptions. Krishna is never the Vishaya of the ghastly ras. One never feels disgusted at Krishna. And Krishna is not the Vishaya for two subcategories of anger. So you can feel angry at the demons or Krishna's enemies, and sometimes you can feel angry at the other devotees, like Rohini got angry at Yasoda for tying up Krishna. Otherwise, only Krishna is the Vishaya, and for the 5 primary Saibhavs, only Krishna is the Vishaya. Okay, so now, although Krishna is the Vishaya for all of the Saibhavs, there's going to be a little bit of difference how each Saibhav perceives Krishna. Okay, so it's Krishna's form, but how Krishna's form? What aspects of Krishna's form? I mean, if we're looking like at Krishna's ages, they're certainly not going to be attracted to Krishna as a little boy, as a baby. So Krishna's form, when Krishna was residing in Dwarka, some of the elderly members of the Yadu family would occasionally put some important matter before him. At such a time, Krishna would carefully give attention to those matters. So they're seeing, oh, wow, Krishna, who's my father or my older brother, he's a good ruler. He takes care of things. He's competent. And if there were some humorous topics mentioned, Krishna would immediately respond with a smiling face. So they're very stimulated by Krishna's affection as a father. Oops, sorry. Sometimes when Krishna was executing his duties in the assembly known as Sudharma, he would ask the elderly members for good advice. So again, being inspired by how Krishna is respectful to his elders, inspires his juniors to be respectful to him. Krishna's qualities that particularly are a stimulus for this Gaurava Priti of the servitude rasa, the supreme spiritual master, the supreme executive head, superior intelligence, supreme power, protector, and maintainer. And especially Krishna's qualities as a great father. Wow, I have such a wonderful father. Great fame, great intelligence, great strength, that he protects his children, that he caresses his children, that he's affectionate to his children. It's interesting that there's a lot of movement in the world today about fathers being more involved in the care of their children. This concept that people will say, well, if the father's watching his children, he's not babysitting. They're his children. And so the father to be involved in the care of his children. And we see that Krishna is like that, right? When Narada visited Krishna's palaces, so he saw Krishna playing with his children, embracing his children, being affectionate with his children. Srila Prabhupada talks about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he says he must have been a very attentive father for all of his children to have developed so nicely in bhakti. So Krishna is not an emotionally cold or emotionally distant father, or one who just, is never there for the children, and the children are very they're very moved in their love by how affectionate Krishna is to them. Okay, the ashraya in Gaurava Priti. Now remember, the ashraya is other devotees who are similar to oneself. So Srila Rupa Goswami is giving this information here in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu for us as sadhakas. So if we awaken to this mood, if what awakens in us is, wow, I want to be one of Krishna's children or one of Krishna's younger siblings, I want to have him as my family member, we can know what qualities to meditate on, and we can know what devotees to meditate on. Also, we would know what qualities that we would want to develop in ourselves. That this is, Srila Rupa Goswami isn't just writing this as something theoretical, because as we already discussed, we discussed this yesterday, that the way that our eternal rasa manifests, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in today's class as well, the way our eternal rasa manifests to us, first of all, we have to become sufficiently purified. But it's when we hear about these, if there's a resonance in us, if we're like, oh, yes, this is what I want, this is who I am. And for those of us who have a different taste, we'll appreciate it, but we'll be like, well, no, that's not what I want. So this ashraya, again, this is stimulus. It's what's, if that's our eternal Staibhav, if that's the Staibhav that's within us, then the hearing about Krishna as a Vishaya in these forms and hearing about these ashraya, it will stimulate our Staibhav to manifest. Okay, we're just going to look at the distinction between the general Dasya Bhav and this Gaurava Dasya Bhav. So the servitors in Dwarka, they always worship Krishna as the most respectable and revered personality of Godhead, and they're captivated by Krishna because of his opulences. So this Gaurava Priti is those who always think themselves protected by Krishna. They could show a practical demonstration of how Krishna is protecting them, because sometimes Krishna's sons acted unlawfully, but still Balaram and Krishna protected them. So the regular servants wouldn't think like that. They wouldn't think, well, if I do something unlawful, Krishna's going to, it's not that intimacy that's there with a father. Now, these categories also appear in Vraja, and although in Vraja, Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the devotees aren't aware of the Lord as the Lord, but they're aware of him. Oh, he's the son of Nanda. He's a very respectable personality. By the way, the practical example of unlawful behavior is Samba kidnapping Lakshmana. Okay, top types of ashraya in this category: those who think themselves subordinate to Krishna in some sense, those who are the sons or daughters or son-in-laws or daughters-in-law of Krishna and his younger brothers and sisters, also brothers-in-law, younger brothers-in-law, younger sisters-in-law, nieces, nephews, and so forth. So sons or younger brothers and sisters, sons or daughters, younger brothers and sisters under the Lord's affectionate care. So examples of younger brothers and sisters are Sharana, Gada, and Subhadra. So Vasudeva had 16 wives, and each of them had many children, and many of whom were younger than Krishna. Then Krishna also had many brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law. So his brothers' spouses and his sisters' spouses, and then and so forth, right? And then their children, his nieces and nephews, would all be in this category. So looking at Krishna's sons, Srila Rupa Goswami gives the example of Pradyumna, Charudeshna, and Shamba. Of course, there's many, many others, because he had 16,108 wives, each of whom had 10 sons and 1 daughter. So all of those are his sons and daughter. And then you're also going to look at their spouses are in this category. So his daughters-in-law, those who marry his sons-in-law who marry his daughters, and then their children, so his grandchildren, also great-grandchildren, and so forth. So all of those are in this category of Ashraya. So now, as Srila Rupa Goswami does in this, you have a question here? Bhaumasura, yes. And in a case of Bhaumasura, Krishna did punish him when he was unlawful, yes, which is explained in one of Krishna's qualities, that he will give protection to enemies who surrender, and he will punish even his own sons if they act improperly. But he didn't punish Samba. So now, as Srila Rupa Goswami always does in each of these, for each of these rasas, and he's explaining about the ashraya, he's going to talk something about, he's going to describe the ashraya. Why is he doing this? He's doing this so if this is our rasa, we know what to meditate on. That's why he's doing this. So these children possess more clothing, ornaments, qualities, and effulgence than the parishads. The parishads were in the regular dasya category. They have black, yellow, and white complexions, and they play in Dwarka. And this is some more description of them. When Krishna's sons dine with him, they would sometimes open their mouths for Krishna to feed them. What a charming meditation. And those who, again, who awaken to this particular rasa, as that develops in them, this might be part of their meditation. Oh, how Krishna is going to feed me. Of course, this goes on between Krishna and the gopis as well, that Krishna and the gopis will sometimes feed each other. I'm sure it goes on with the queens as well, that they feed each other. Yes, Santa Vigraha. All of Krishna's children, grandchildren, etc., they're all in this feeling of Gaurava. That is correct. Sometimes when Krishna, this is again talking about the behavior of the ashrayas. Sometimes when Krishna would pat one of his sons, the son would sit on Krishna's lap, and while Krishna was blessing the son's head by smelling it, the others would shed tears, thinking how many pious activities he must have performed in his previous life. Oh, wow, look at my brother who's getting all this affection from Krishna. So now, as Srila Rupa Goswami generally does, he's going to focus on particular ashrayas. These are not the only ashrayas, but he's going to focus on a particular ashraya in more depth. Now, sometimes Pradyumna is described as Vishnu Tattva, part of the Chaturvyuha. He's also sometimes described as a demigod Cupid, but most of the Lord's devotees in this category are jivas. They're not Vishnu Tattvas. So Pradyumna's form, again, this is what Srila Rupa Goswami, you see this repeating. He's always going to take form and the bhakti or the qualities of the ashraya. So he's the crown jewel of the Yadu princes, the killer of Shambhara, and mistaken for Krishna because of his beautiful form. He's going to describe his bhakti. This was spoken, this is Pradyumna speaking to a woman that he was kidnapping. He says, see in the sky, the Lord of the Yadus, our Guru, the ocean of mercy, riding on Garuda, cared for by him with the greatest affection. I have attained such confidence that I defeated the ferocious Tripurari in battle. So this is Pradyumna speaking to a woman he's kidnapping to marry. My greatness is that the Lord is my father. Okay, we're going to do a breakout room. And here I'd like you to talk about what it might be like, what it might feel like, what it might be like to have Krishna as your father or older brother, as your elder or your uncle, your father, your uncle, your older brother, your father-in-law, your older brother-in-law. So why am I asking you to do this? So Srila Rupa Goswami at the end of the Southern Ocean, in the fifth wave of the Southern Ocean, talks about how that by meditating on the devotees of Krishna, we can feel some of what they feel. So even if this isn't, our own eternal rasa, we still can appreciate this feeling. And we should appreciate this feeling, not just as an intellectual exercise, but actually on the level of emotion. And this is something that Srila Rupa Goswami is specifically telling us to do in the fifth wave of the Southern Ocean. So how would we feel? So we're going to do a 10-minute breakout. Okay, and I think our organizers have arranged. I think for this you're pre-assigned. I hope. Oh, you didn't do that. You were supposed to do pre-assigned, not choosing, but you didn't do that. Maybe you could do that for the next one, please. Okay, so now we're going to have a 10-minute break. So please come back in 10 minutes and please take a real break. Get up, move around, drink some water, go outside, and so forth. So as we go through this, I want you to take notes on these categories. Think about the differences between regular servitude and this servitude of Krishna's children and younger siblings. We're going to look at Udipana, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, Vyavichari Bhava, and some parts of the Sthai Bhava. So here we're looking at Udipanas. This is still part of Vibhava, like the Lord's glance mixed with affection and smiling. Here's an example. Seeing Krishna with his affectionate glance in front of him, Gada, with confused mind, offered his respects at Krishna's lotus feet. So this is 3.2.157 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So if we look at the Bhagavatam 9th canto, 24th chapter summary, Srila Prabhupada writes that Vasudeva had many wives, of whom Devaki and Rohini were the most important. From the womb of Rohini, Baladev was born along with Gada, Sarana, Durmada, Vipula, Dhruva, Krita, and others. Vasudeva had many other sons by his other wives. So Gada is a younger brother of Krishna. So again, as we notice that Srila Rupa Goswami likes to give one particular example for the Ashraya, as sometimes, he'll mention there are all these, like he's mentioned, okay, there are all these Ashraya, but then he wants to give an example of a particular Ashraya. So he's giving here a particular example of Gada as the Ashraya and what acts as an Udipana for him. So what acts as an Udipana for Gada is seeing Krishna's affectionate glance. Now, another possible way to translate that verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is what we find in Nectar of Devotion, chapter 40, where here Balaram means elder brother. So instead of Krishna meeting the elder brother of Gada, Prabhupada's translating it as Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna. And instead of using Gada as the name of Krishna's younger brother, he's using Gada as the name of Balaram's club, as Balaram's club. So perhaps Srila Prabhupada did it this way because Krishna's club is a person. And we had this discussion the other day that Sudarshan and the conch shell are Vishnu Tattva. At least they can be the brothers of Lord Ramachandra, as explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we were saying, well, what about the club and the lotus flower? So it's possible that this club has this mood of being a younger brother of Krishna. Maybe he's a person and in Krishna's family. Of course, he is a person. Maybe he's a person in Krishna's family, and it can be understood like that. So this is what how Srila Prabhupada takes that verse. Okay, looking at the Anubhava of the servitude rasa in Gaurava Priti category. And again, the Anubhavas are Shita and Shepana, which means without a lot of bodily movement and with bodily movement. So the essence of the Anubhavas for Gaurava Priti is an expression of subordination. Again, Anubhava basically means anything we do as physical service. So sitting on a seat lower than Krishna's, following after Krishna, following Krishna's order, and giving up their own wishes. So these are the Shita Anubhavas, an example of sitting on a lower seat. When the demigods came to Krishna, Krishna's sons followed them, and Lord Brahma sprinkled water from his kamandalu upon them. The sons, instead of sitting on golden chairs, sat down on the deerskin covered floor. So the sons they're princes, but they had Krishna sitting on the big throne, and they're just sitting on the floor that's covered with deerskin when the demigods come to visit. So anubhavas that are in common with the general dasas is offering respects, so the general dasas don't necessarily do that same subordinate activity. Keeping silent in front of the Lord, humility, carrying out the Lord's order, even if it means giving up their lives, lowering their heads, firmness, not laughing or coughing in front of the Lord, not listening to Krishna's private joking conversations. As Srila Jiva Goswami says, it's not forbidden that they hear Krishna's private talks, but they don't understand what's going on. It might be in the room while there is a servant, but they don't enter into trying to understand Krishna's private talks and crouching down. So Anubhavas, in common with the Dasyas, they never discussed Krishna's pastimes and conjugal love. In other words, so this is the Dasyas in general, those who are in Dasya Bhav, whether they're generally in Dasya or whether they're in Gaurava as Krishna's younger family members, they never discuss Krishna's conjugal pastimes. And we see that such a thing is true even in ordinary families. So we don't even think about the conjugal relations of our parents. So we don't even think about it. We certainly do not discuss it. And this concept of not even thinking about that, or same with the older brothers, the older friend, it's just not there. It's someone needs to mute. We know it's there, obviously. We know our parents have a romantic relationship with each other, but we really don't think about it. We don't discuss it. So those in Dasya Bhav, they're not involved at all with such things. And Srila Prabhupada says those who engage in reverential devotional service should not discuss the conjugal loving affairs of Krishna. And so Prabhupada's referring to those who are in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhav, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, sorry. Those in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti that, of course, we do discuss. Somebody needs to mute. Can the organizers mute who's ever not muted, please? I looked and I'd have to cycle through everything to find it. To find the person who is not muted. So obviously, we distribute Krishna book and Chaitanya Charitamrita to ordinary people on the street. And Prabhupada says we're not boycotting the gopis. So it's not that we don't discuss these things at all, but we don't go into them deeply unless we have some realization of our own relationship with Krishna, and it is not in Dasya. So there are some exceptions, obviously. There are some servants who are more intimate, but in general, that is the case. And then Prabhupada writes this statement in Nectar of Devotion: no one should claim his eternal relationship with Krishna unless he is liberated. In the conditioned state of life, the devotees have to execute the prescribed duties as recommended in the codes of devotional service. When one is mature in devotional service and is a realized soul, he can know his own eternal relationship with Krishna. This relates to another question Prabhupada always talks about it, eternal, which means it has no beginning. One should not artificially try to establish some relationship. So Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati often use this word liberated, but Prabhupada also will say that one's relationship with Krishna generally manifests at the end of the Anarta Nivritti platform. So by liberated, Prabhupada is not talking about no trace of the modes of nature. And as we learned earlier, an ashraya in rasa can be a majjhima sadhaka who's realized something of their staibhav, but is not completely out of the material clutches. So if this meaning of liberation was taken to mean absolutely out of the material clutches, it would mean in prema. Because even in bhava, there may be some influence of the material stage of life. And then there would be no such thing as Raganuga sadhana bhakti. It wouldn't exist. Because to do Raganuga sadhana, you have to know something of your eternal relationship with Krishna, or you can't do Raganuga. It doesn't make any sense. And so there, it is a sadhaka. It is a sadhana, and it's done by a sadhaka. But what Srila Prabhupada wants to avoid here is two things. He wants to avoid sahajaism, where there are people claiming to be gopis and they're smoking cigarettes and they're having illicit affairs and so many things like that. So they're making it something cheap. And then Prabhupada's also trying to eliminate people artificially. This, one should not artificially try to establish some relationship, is a very, very important point. This, our Sai Bhav has to manifest of its own spontaneously. It's not something that can be forced. It's not something that should ever be done artificially. And the way it normally manifests, according to Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, as we talked about yesterday, is when one hears about devotees and pastimes in a particular way, that there's a resonance in one's own heart. Unless one has some purification, though, that doesn't happen. Okay, going on to the Sattvika Bhavs in Gaurava Priti category. So what is a Sattvika Bhav? It's when the heart becomes overwhelmed by one's Sthai Bhav, either a primary or secondary Sthai Bhav, and there's a state of Sattva in the heart, and the body then becomes transformed in these 8 ways. So all 8 of these Sattvika Bhavs can exist in Gaurava Priti. And here's one example that Srila Goswami gives. My dear Cupid, having seen the lotus feet at Mukunda, your body has become immobile, covered with perspiration, with hair standing on end. Your body is imitating a flowering thorn bush spread with snow. Looking at Vyavichari Bhavs in Gaurava Priti category, again, when the heart becomes softened in sattva by the combination of the Sthai Bhavs and the Vyavichari Bhavs, it manifests as Anubhavs and Sattvika Bhavs. But the Vyavichari Bhavs are not exactly voluntary or involuntary. They're an emotional state. And sometimes they sound like Anubhavs and Sattvika Bhavs because they are producing them. So Srila Goswami says that all the Vyavichari Bhavs described for those with some Brahma Priti are there in Gaurava Priti. So there's not a difference. And here are some examples. Joy. When the Kanch Panchajanya sounded, the hairs on the bodies of young Yadu princes in Dwarka began to dance with the dancers. So the hairs standing on end, the hairs are dancing along with the dancers. Such nice poetry. Disappointment. Pradyumna laments that because he was kidnapped as a baby, he did not get the same childhood interactions with Krishna that Stamba did. Okay, looking a little bit at the Sthai Bhav of the servitude rasa. So what is the rati? The mentality that the Lord is one's loving protector, born from the feeling that one belongs to him as a son or younger family member. So that's the basic relationship. I am the Lord's younger family member and he is my protector. That's the basic relationship. Okay? So that's of this rasa. Srila Jiva Goswami says that Gaurava Priti comes from the word guru. So guru di, meditating. This person is my father. And the difference in the basic feeling, in Sambhrama Priti, there's eagerness. I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve. What service can I do? What service can I do? What service can I do? The basic feeling in Gaurava Priti is, I am Krishna's son-in-law. I am Krishna's grandson. I am Krishna's little brother. I'm Krishna's child. That's the basic feeling. So that there's a difference there in that rati. And the meaning of Gauravam is thinking that Krishna is the protecting, caressing figure, Gurudhi, from considering bodily relationship, from considering oneself born from the Lord as his infant child, identifying as his. So the meaning of Priti in this, because this is also, Dasya Bhav is also called Priti Bhav, adoration for the Lord as a parent or older brother, wanting to be caressed and cared for by the Lord in the role of parent or older brother. I want Krishna to hug me and pat me as his little child. So this is more intimate than Sambrama. So regard Krishna as one superior is reverential feeling. So it's reverential, but in addition, Krishna is my personal family protector. And like in Sambrama, we have the three stages of prema, sneha, and raga, the three intensities. And again, definition of prema, when love becomes very fixed and you're convinced it will never decrease. And the anubhavas are things like complete attachment to the Lord. So an example of prema, the most sober Pradyumna could not open his mouth in order to speak to his father. He did not lift his tear-filled eyes and threw only furtive glances at Krishna's lotus feet. So this is extreme reverence. I mean, in many places in the world, children don't have this kind of reverence for their fathers nowadays. You'll see it in some cultures. But here we're seeing in this Bhakti Rasa that this extreme reverence of the younger family members is due to the general reverence in Mathura and Dwarka. And then a prema example, although Abhimanyu was killed almost in your presence, Subhadra's love for you is not agitated at all, nor has it even slightly changed its original color. So Subhadra is in the category of a devotee who has Gaurava love for the Lord as his little sister. And being dependent on the Lord's protection means to be in love with him even when apparently externally he doesn't protect you in the way you would desire or expect. You might think, well, if I'm under the Lord's protection, I'm his little sister, he's going to make sure that my son Abhimanyu doesn't get killed. But Abhimanyu did get killed, and he got killed with a violation of the rules of combat. But Subhadra didn't think, oh, I don't love Krishna anymore. She's still, oh, he's my big brother. He takes care of me. However he wants to take care of me, he takes care of me. Okay. So how can we cultivate this mood? This is a general discussion of how can we, as sadhakas, how can we cultivate this mood that Krishna is my protector and maintainer, even when externally it doesn't seem like he's doing that? Anybody's thoughts?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I was thinking of one of the verses in the Shikshastakam as a
Yes.
meditation.
That we could meditate on that verse.
Yeah.
That is definitely a way that we could do that as sadhakas. Yes, Mahalakshmi.
By seeing that everything that happens is being arranged by the Lord, and that is the way He's protecting me. Because I may have a desire, and it seems to me it's a good desire to please Him, but if He doesn't grant it, as we were hearing before, I have what I need. So
that's I need what I have.
I need what? Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Goes the other direction. In other words, what I need are the things that I have.
Yes,
Otherwise,
exactly.
thinking, I need this, but no, what I need is what I have. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Very nice. Vedagarbha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, I thought that you can also remember the instances in your life when Krishna protected you, if you can link it. I can remember such examples, and it actually enhances my faith in the world when I remember this, because people tend to forget about this, but when you get back to these moments, you see that the Lord protected you in the past, and He will protect you in the future also.
Yes, yes. Very nice. I like what Leela Madhuri Lalita says, when he removes all our material attachments, externally it's painful, but it's actually his protection. And I like this one, with Krishna's grace, I'm in Srila Prabhupada's mission. Very nice. Santa Vigraha Prabhu.
One of the two meditations we had in our previous breakout room, one of them was Srila Prabhupada translates being in the Achyuta Gotra as being in the family of the Supreme Lord. So I was thinking as sadhakas, just thinking oneself as, members of at least our own sangha or family members, and we're actually all family members of the Supreme Lord in that way. And one thing I was meditating on is even when difficulties come in my life, I can meditate that Krishna is personally doing this for my benefit.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, I'd like to go on. Thank you very much. Okay, going on with the other next intensity of prema is sneha. So this was the same as in Sambrahma Dasyabhav. Prema becomes extremely thick and the heart melts, and one cannot tolerate even a moment's separation. And an example of this is Pradyumna. Stop that excessive trembling and relieve your choking voice. Wipe the tears from your eyes and look at me, Krishna is saying this. Give me your hand full of goosebumps. Oh, child, what is this veneration for your father? So Krishna is actually asking him to be more casual. So raga, and we had this again with Sambrahma Dasyabhav. With Krishna, sorrow is happiness. Without Krishna, happiness is sorrow. If I have happiness minus Krishna, that's sorrow. If I have sorrow plus Krishna, that's happiness. And one will do anything to please Krishna, even giving one's life. So here's an example. If indicated by his father, Pradyumna will immediately drink poison as if it were nectar. And if his father does not permit it, he will reject nectar as if it were poison. Okay, we're going to have a breakout room. And I want you to discuss the differences and similarities in terms of Udipana, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, Vyavachari Bhava between Sambrahma Dasyabhav and Gaurava Sakyabhav. Between these two categories, what's similar and what's different. So again, as Srila Rupa Goswami does with each of these Staibhavs, he's going to look at separation and meeting, and these are going to be the same categories. There's the same categories for all of Dasyabhav, all of Sakyabhav, and all of Vatsalyabhav. Ayogya and with separation, subtraction, and yoga, Udkantikam and Viyoga, Siddhi, Tusti, and Stiti. Now, in neutral, it's different. It was just hidden and visible. And in conjugal rasa, it's different. But for this, all types of servitude, all types of friendship, and all types of parento, we're going to have these two categories of separation and three categories of meeting. Okay, so first we're going to look at separation. Udkantikam, longing before ever meeting the Lord. And Viyoga, separation after meeting. So Udkantikam, longing before ever meeting the Lord. So Pradyumna was speaking to his wife Rati. He said, the enemy Sambara is already killed. Now I am very anxious to see my father. So Pradyumna was kidnapped right after his birth. So he hadn't met his father. So this is separation before having met. And would this apply to other family members? Some places it said that all of Vasudev's wives were, except for Devaki, were hiding in Vrindavan out of fear of Kamsa. Would there have been any younger siblings there at the time? Well, Vasudev was in Mathura, so I'm not sure if he was sneaking and seeing his wives, if they were coming to meet him in Mathura sometimes. We know he didn't go to Vrindavan, but it could be that all the younger siblings of Krishna appeared after Krishna goes to Mathura, and so there might not be any younger siblings in Vrindavan from these other queens. It's not mentioned, but I could see it either way as far as having these, never having met Krishna. Certainly this could also apply to some of the children-in-law, like a daughter-in-law, a son-in-law, and so forth, that, or the brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law of his siblings, that there might be an arrangement for a marriage and they hadn't met Krishna yet. So they know they're going to marry Krishna's brother, they're going to marry Krishna's sister, they're going to marry Krishna's son, they're going to marry Krishna's daughter, but they haven't yet met Krishna. So you would have this kind of separation before a first meeting. Then Viyoga, separation after meeting. So another example of Pradyumna. Since my father has left Dwarka, I do not take much pleasure in practicing fighting, nor am I interested in any kind of sporting pastimes. Dwarka now seems like a prison. Right? You remember the servants in Vrindavan, Raktaki didn't want to take care of the cows. And I don't want to do anything. Krishna's gone. What's the point of doing anything? Okay, now looking at the 3 kinds of meeting. This is the start of Nectar Devotion, chapter 39. So 3 kinds of meeting: siddhi, perfection of the first meeting; tusti, satisfaction meeting after separation; and sthiti, steadiness, eternal association. So the first meeting. So here we have again the example of Pradyumna. When Pradyumna, arriving from Shambhara city, saw his father in front of him for the first time, though he was by nature very sober, out of great joy he forgot himself and thought, who am I? He was so happy he couldn't remember who he was. Meeting after separation. So this is connected to separation after meeting and meeting after separation. They're very connected. This I think is really funny. So when Krishna returns to Dwarka, all of his sons were so overjoyed, that out of ecstasy they repeatedly made many mistakes. So, we say the liberated souls never make mistakes, but they also, out of ecstasy, may be making so many mistakes. Like we read about how Krishna tries to milk a bull when he sees that Radharani is trying to churn butter from an empty pot. And then eternal association. So every day, Pradyumna looked over Krishna's lotus feet with tears in his eyes. So every day, he's just looking at his father's lotus feet. So a review of the bhavas, that we have the primary sthai bhav, which is stimulated by vibhav, interacts with the vyavichari and secondary sthai bhavs, and produces anubhavs and sattvika bhavs. The 5 components of rasa. So we can have some time for a general discussion. So any general questions or discussions? Paneshwari Lakshmi, yes. And maybe the organizers, if you can do a site, yes. Got it. Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, we had a question. We had a question in our group about when we were talking about the difference between the Sambram and the Gaurava Priti. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did not see those, what we would term in material terms, negative emotions like, what was it, humiliation, whatever it was that we were talking about. I didn't see those in the Gaurava Priti. So I was reading through, I kept looking through all my highlights in the Nectar of Devotion, but it was all ones that I saw, jubilation, hair standing on end, tears falling from the eyes, those kind of things. But I didn't see any of those like being near death, and the only one I did see in common was disappointment. But all the other ones that we spoke about, I didn't see those. Am I wrong? or did I miss something?
Srila Rupa Goswami didn't give examples of all those. He just said, so these are all in common. And then he didn't give examples in this category. He gave more examples in the Sambrahma, but he didn't give examples in the
Okay. So there is some overlap.
He just said they're the same. And then he doesn't give examples of everything.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Sometimes for certain things, he will go through and give an example of every single thing. And other times he'll say, here they are, here's a few examples. The Kunja Mandari.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, just to get a more clear understanding, when it comes to servitude, I think about Lord Hanuman. But now in servitude, there are 2 categories, Sambrahma and Gaurav Priti. So where to put Lord Hanuman? Because like you said, in Sambrama, they just want to serve, serve, and serve, which Lord Hanuman does. And Lord Hanuman also considers Sita Devi as a mother, which
Right,
is
but if we look at the essence of the Staibhav, again, the Staibhav is the basic relationship. So the Staibhav of the Sambrama is, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve. The Staibhav of the Gaurava is, I'm 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 loved and protected by my superior family member, Krishna. I'm thinking like, I'm sure many of you have longtime servants in your family, yes? Like I had an aunt and uncle, they had a servant who had been with their family for decades. So in one sense, he was sort of kind of the family. I mean, when he got old and he couldn't do any work anymore, they took care of him as if he was a family member. But he wasn't a family member. He wasn't a family.
so for Lord Hanuman, then Sambrama is what we are saying.
It most likely. I'm not going to say definitely for a fact. I know that, but it certainly seems
Even he
that.
says like Mother Sita, like Sita is my mother, and
Well, even you had examples in Sambrama. Remember, you had those who just serve Krishna and those who just serve the women of Krishna. And there was one example, I think, with Satyabhama, that the son of Satyabhama's nurse, he grew up with Satyabhama, I think it was Satyabhama, like a sister. Although he was the servant's son, he saw Satyabhama as like his sister. And when Satyabhama married Krishna, he also came with her, and he was kind of like a brother-in-law to Krishna, but he's in the Sambrama category. So again, they're family, but they're not family. It's a little different. You're family and you're not, you're like family. You may be like family. So we have that, there's some, more and more intimate in the Sambrama, right? 4 levels and one is very intimate, but still they're not exactly family.
Hare Krishna Mataji. What about the
Yes.
relationship of the two younger Pandavas with Krishna?
But they're in friendship mixed with servitude. So their primary relationship is friendship, but they have some touch of servitude.
But because they respect him as elder, they would never speak without his permission, and so on and so forth.
Well, no, because they're not pure servitude. No, they're not. They're
No?
friends. Nuh-uh, they're friends. But they're subordinate friends, but they're friends. So no, much more casual. No, they don't. No, it's not like that.
Much more casual.
Yeah, much more.
I'm
No,
reversing
you're putting the
reversing the
emphasis
relation.
on there is a little bit of dasya there. There's a little bit of dasya there. There's some because they're younger. But I mean, just like Krishna's friends in Vrindavan, of course, you're saying the Pandavas because they're actually related, although the 2 younger Pandavas are not related. The 3 older Pandavas are related through Kunti. The 2 younger
Yeah, that's what
Pandavas,
I was thinking when you said not related, but they are
they're technically not related.
technically, but in actuality, they are as related in terms of the
They
functional
are,
relation.
but they're much more in their primary is friendship. So all 5 of the Pandavas and Draupadi. Draupadi is
And
also
Draupadi.
listed as one of the friends. She's the only female that Srila Rupa Goswami lists as friend in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The only one.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's a reasonable assumption that there must be a lot more.
Krishna does call him Sakhi.
Yes, but my reasonable conclusion is that there's probably a lot more females who are also in Sakyabhav. Now, Santa Vigraha, you say family by relationship, but not by blood. Yes, but this Gaurava Priti also applies to like sons-in-law and daughters-in-law and brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law. So, once you're still family. So the 2 younger Pandavas definitely feel that they're family, but they're still friendship.
I was
It's
just
still
commenting on like the
ah
servant of the home, like that, not specifically on the Pandavas.
yeah,
Like the
yeah, yeah,
servant
yeah.
of the home who continued to be cared for after they became old and couldn't like serve anymore.
Yes.
That's
I think we all have this experience that there are some family members that we're family, but our primary relationship is friendship. So I'm sure we have some family members like that where, the friendship is overriding superiority, inferiority of family that we feel very intimate. Prabhupada writes about this particularly between grandparents and grandchildren. He says that the grandmother can joke around with the grandson. So my grandson-in-law likes to bring this up. He says, Grandma, it says this in the first canto that a particular uh, joking relationship. Yes, Ekanta.
I'm sorry, I didn't raise up the hand.
Oh, you did have your hand raised. Okay, no problem. Somehow it jumped up. Sometimes if you just like put your hand up, it thinks you've raised your hand. It does that. Okay, Virjeshwari Pran.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, I have a two-part question. So my understanding is the eternal positions are all already filled. There's, we cannot become somebody like mother or, because it's already filled. So we can become the followers of Ragatmika devotees. So in that case, even if we have inclination of sister, son, brother, my understanding is those positions are already filled in spiritual world.
Okay,
But
good question. So that's true for some things. Like Krishna has his own mother, Devaki and Vasudeva. But look, he's got two sets of parents. And you have the Leela where Krishna takes the form of the different cowherd boys and the calves. And so all of the parents get to be Krishna's parents. So there you go. And
right.
that's
Putana
there.
also.
That's there.
Yeah.
And Krishna doesn't just have 16,108 queens in the spiritual world. He's got unlimited queens. So he's got unlimited children. And if you want to be one of Krishna's children, you can be. You don't just have to be a follower of one of Krishna's children. You can be one of Krishna's children. So you're not going to be Pradyumna. You're not going to be Subhadra. But yeah, that's unlimited.
And also based on our inclination, that our heart will be satisfied in that relationship. There won't be any incompleteness, not that I'm not that, I'm not this.
It goes the other way. It goes the other direction. Because I'm fully satisfied to serve Krishna in this way, therefore I have that relationship. It starts the other way.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Because the emphasis by all of our acharyas is that it's our choice. It's our desire. It's our choice. See, it's very difficult for us to think about something that has no beginning as being our choice. It's hard for us because we're time bound in this world. And it's just a sense of this is who I am. This is who I want to be. This is what satisfies me. Like I know one devotee who has awakened to her relationship with Krishna as a younger cowherd boy. And she says, I'm just not interested in the gopis' relationship with Krishna. It just doesn't interest me. It's not something that I want. So it's what resonates with us, what we're like, wow, this is how I want to serve Krishna. This is how I want to be satisfied. Therefore, we have that position. We're not assigned the position. It's not like the communists in China that just told people you have to do this job and you have to do this job whether you like it or not. And then you just kind of tolerate it. Even in this life with our mundane, as Prabhupada would say, psychophysical nature, we should do the kind of work that resonates with our nature. If I have a Vaishya nature, if I have a Shudra nature, if I have a Kshatriya nature, if I have a Brahminical nature, I should do the work that corresponds with that nature because I want to work in a certain way. I want to do a business for Krishna. Therefore, I should do Vaishya work.
Can
I
I
want to
ask a
protect
follow-up
people for
question?
Krishna.
Sorry,
Is that
Mataji.
clear? So that's even true
Yes, that is
now.
very clear, Mataji. I just have a follow-up question on that.
Sure, go ahead.
That Mataji mentioned that if we have some inclination for a particular rasa, we can meditate on it, we can go deeper. So the two questions arise is, that we don't do that whimsically unless we are purified and we also get approval from our guru that this is what my inclination is. Can I go ahead? Is that right? And where do we find uh, um, scriptures or anything to meditate? Because some of the rasas, some of the personalities are not mentioned in a deeper way in our scriptures. That we need to find scriptures to meditate on them, like Mother Yashoda, like Pradyumna, those kind of personalities. So those are the two questions. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, so this inclination to serve Krishna in a certain way, if we are following the process of bhakti correctly, should arise of its own accord as we become purified. So at the end of anartha nivritti, when 40 to 50% of our anarthas are cleaned, then generally what happens is as we're reading or hearing about different devotees, this spontaneous feeling arises. Oh, that's how I want to serve Krishna. I want Krishna embracing me and smelling my head and saying, oh, my dear child, oh, my dear child. That's what I want. So that arises in us. And yes, Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati says that this should be discussed and confirmed and purified by senior Vaishnavas. It may be one's Diksha Guru, Siksha Guru, but he's saying by senior Vaishnavas, we should discuss with them, this is what's happened with me, and how do I deal with this? What do I do with this? There's a nice discussion with Srila Prabhupada. I was looking for it again. I wasn't able to find it easily. I'll try to look again, where one senior devotee said to Prabhupada, oh, there's these devotees who really want to serve Krishna as cowherd boys. And Prabhupada just said, oh, that's wonderful. What we found with Srila Prabhupada, whenever devotees approached him about these things because of an emotional, spontaneous awakening, he encouraged it. Whenever they wanted to discuss such things from an intellectual, philosophical platform, he would shut it down. And you may remember the Gopi Baba Club. The reason Prabhupada shut that down is they started saying that they didn't want to talk about Mother Yasoda. And Prabhupada got so angry, and he said, you stop this immediately. So I hope that answers the first part. Does that answer the first part of your question?
That is very clear, Mataji. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And you could compare this, if you want to compare this on a mundane level, let's say that at a certain point of physical, psychological, emotional maturity, you want to get married and you find someone that you think, oh, I want to marry this person. And then you consult with your parents and your authorities. So that would be a material analogy. Now, the question is, so what if your Vaibhav awakens and there isn't so much information in the Shastra about the particular devotees and particular rasa that you've awakened to? Hari Parsha Prabhu spoke about this in a podcast recently. Like, let's say you awaken to wanting to be Balaram's Gopi. I know of people in this situation. And, there's some information. There's some, of course, in the Bhagavatam. There's some in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. There's some here and there, but not a whole lot. There's one mention of Balaram's chief Gopi Purnananda. Very little description of her. There's not, Balaram's gopis are in the Bhagavatam, but not named. Of course, Krishna's gopis aren't named in the Bhagavatam either. But even if you, let's say you want to be a follower of Srimati Radharani, even among her Astasakis. So some followers of Srimati Radharani are going to be followers of Lalita. Some are where there's a lot of information in the scripture. Some are going to be followers of Vishaka, where there's far less. If you want to be a follower of Sudevi or Indulekha, that's going to be even less. And like I've met devotees in these kinds of situations where there's very, very, very little information about some of these personalities. So then what does one do in Raganuga Sadhana? One meditates on the Ashraya devotees that are mentioned by our acharyas as far as possible, the descriptions in the Shastra that are mentioned, and as one becomes purified, these things will start to be revealed in the heart. These things will start to be manifest in the heart, and that it should not be artificially imitated. These things have to come as they are revealed to the devotee. Okay, it is 9 o'clock, so I'm sorry I need to end here. I actually have a lot of some appointments today, and I can't go late today. So thank you very much. Tomorrow we'll be looking, Krishna willing, at friendship. Anything good in this presentation is from Srila Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Jiva Goswami, all of our acharyas in the Shastra. Anything wrong here is my fault. Please, with my mistakes, either correct them or ignore them and take the good. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.